Hello and welcome to an update of the to fluff or not to fluff bins. I know it's been a while, but you know things are very slow going here, and we just have to let the experiment run its course. But I decided to do an update and see how these guys are doing. So this bin is the one that we do fluff the material in, and you can see that they've worked this over very, very well. The material in here is very nice. It's flaky, but very moist. Not at all compacted. Of course, you can also tell that I don't have a lot of material in here. And if the bin was fuller, we may be looking at a completely different outcome for the bin that has not been fluffed. Now, because I do fluff this bin, it would still be pretty much in this condition as I do fluff my other bins. So I know from personal experience that even if the bins are have a lot more material in it, it's still nice, moist, and flaky, because I do tend to fluff the bins over every week when I feed. Now, you can also pretty much tell that a lot of this material probably is ready for harvesting, but I don't want to harvest just yet, so I'm going to add more bedding. We're going to increase the level of the bin, so I'll add more bedding and more food. I'll do the same thing for the other one, and we'll just keep going until probably until the bin is halfway full, because that's how most people run their bins. So I really want to give it a fair trial here. So let me get some bedding in here, some food down, and we'll go over to the other bin. So you can see all I did here was I grabbed a handful of bedding and I put some food on top. The other bin is going to get exactly the same thing. I sprinkled it a little bit of oyster shell, eggshell combination. And now we can just put the castings on top, keeping everything nice and covered, as well as moist. And the worms will be in there in no time at all. I'll just keep doing that until the level of the bin rises. We have a lot more castings in the bin, since we know it's the castings that tend to retain the moisture and not so much the shredded paper and the cardboard. Okay, let's go over to the other bin. So here's the bin that we don't fluff. Okay. And it has a lot more material because I don't work the material into the castings. Whatever I put on top, in this case it was some bedding, I put it on top. It was moist bedding, but I put everything on top. And so it kind of takes its sweet time getting worked over by the worms. But they're doing a very good job as well. And I'm sure that if I started turning this material over, you would see that it pretty much resembles the bin that is being fluffed up. So what I'm going to do is just make some room here. I'm going to create a pocket just like I typically do when I feed. I'm just not going to turn the material over. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab a handful of bedding and put the food on top, sprinkle it with the buffer, and show you what that looks like. So as you can see, this looks pretty much the same as the bin that we do fluff. And we are just going to work some of that bedding in. We are not fluffing anything up, but we are going to cover this a little bit with the old bedding. And this should be perfectly fine. So these guys are done as well. and we will leave them alone and check back with them in a while. I do feed them every week. I just don't bring you the videos of it because there's very little to report right now. The bins do look pretty much identical and feel identical. So we'll see once the material gets higher, and we will judge by that. So that's it for this week, and thanks for joining me.